Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Chelsea. If you like this video, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up or commenting below. If you want to see more of my videos, press the subscribe button and click on the bell for notifications. If you need any Stampin' Up! Products to make these cards and tags, you can visit my online store, and the link is in the description box below. When you purchase Stampin' Up! Products through me, you can earn free products. Check out my current customer appreciation products on my blog, and the link is listed below in the description box. Today I'd like to share with you my Artisan Design Team Showcase projects for October 2021. I was asked to create with the Whimsy and Wonder suite from Stampin' Up! And I just think these cute tags and cards are just so fun, and I'd like to share how I created them with you today. So let's go ahead and begin first by talking about some of the products that I've used from the Whimsy and Wonder suite. So the suite includes 4 different products. One of the first things is this beautiful Whimsy and Wonder Specialty Designer Series paper. And it's called specialty paper because it has some silver foiling on it. Can you see all that beautiful shine? So there is one side to each sheet that has that silver foiling on it. So it's just a really pretty paper. It's got some really fun colors that coordinate with it. Soft colors or bright colors, it's really up to you. Isn't this one so fun? I love that you can get those rainbow iridescent looks with it. Then on the other side you have your kind of a plain pattern paper. So you can mix and match these with so many different projects. They could be used all year round. It doesn't just need to be for Christmas. So pretty. So the other product is the stamp set and dies. So the stamp set is called Whimsical Trees. You get some really fun images of Christmas trees in all different sizes and shapes. You also have some ornaments, kind of a holly mistletoe look, and then some fun greetings. And then the coordinating dies are fun as well. So it does cut out all the images, but then you get some other detailed images like this fun kind of ribbon for a Christmas tree, and then some small little elements that you could decorate a Christmas tree with. So that's a really fun one too, and that's called Christmas Tree Dies, and you can get them individually or as a bundle, and the bundle does save you 10% when you purchase them together. The other product that is really fun are these wonderful snowflakes. And that's actually what they're called. They're die-cut snowflakes from kind of an iridescent pearl white color, and I did use these on my projects as well. You just want to be really gentle as you pull them from their paper so that you don't accidentally tear any of them. There are 24 in total. So there's 6 on a sheet, so that means you have 4 sheets. So pretty. Do you see that fun iridescent look to them? So I have used those as well on my projects. And then the other thing I've used is this really pretty Blushing Bride frayed gauze grain ribbon. And it's about 3/8 of an inch in thickness. And it has this really beautiful texture on the ends. And it's just really easy to use to your projects. And I've used those as well on my cards and tags. I am also using some other Stampin' Up! Products as well, and I will just talk about those as I need them. So let's go ahead and make these projects. So one of the things I wanted to share with you today was kind of my process when I'm creating. So when I have a new stamp set and die set that I'm going to be working with, one of the things I do very first is stamp all of the images. And actually I'll stamp them in all the different colors that I'm planning on using for that project so that I can mix and match and swap things out as I want, and I don't have to stop and stamp, fussy cut, die cut, all that kind of stuff. So what I did is I took the images from the Whimsical Trees and I stamped and cut them out in a lot of coordinating colors with the Whimsy and Wonder Specialty Designer Series paper. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through those colors really quick. So I did Blushing Bride, Misty Moonlight, And sometimes I'll even pull in a lighter color that's not specifically mentioned in that suite or coordinating paper. And so here I've stamped Misty Moonlight ink on some balmy blue cardstock just to kind of reinforce that blue color but not have it be so dark. I've also used polished pink, and you can see that I've stamped the polished pink on the Blushing Bride for that tree there. I've got mint macaron. It looks like maybe I didn't stamp anything for these cards in that, but I would have as I was designing. I've just done the things I'm going to be using. And then Mossy Meadow, you can see I've stamped some of that. I also have some in that cardstock color. Now I would also do all the die cuts in maybe some of the pattern paper, maybe some of the solid cardstock that coordinates. I would just get as many of those things that I think I'll be using so that I can just create and not have to stop. So for these cards, I did add some fun textures to the die cuts with some silver embossing paste. And so on these stamped trees here, I've added the dots, and this image does come from the stamp set. And so I'll just go ahead and do those really quickly with you. So to do the embossing, I really like to use an embossing buddy. And you can get this, I'm sure, at any craft store or even online. And I'm just going to add that to the top of each one of those and then ink up my dots. And then that just gets stamped right over with some nice even pressure. And I'm going to do that to all three. And it's just fun to do something like this to add just that little extra special touch to your images. So now I have my silver embossing powder, and I'm just going to go ahead and apply that over the entire image and tap off the excess. Okay, so then the next step is to heat emboss it with my heat tool. So you'll see that I've heated all those up. They're all nice and shiny and ready for my cards. The other thing that I added was some heat embossing to the die cuts. And this one I did a little differently because there's no stamp for the bottom of those branches. And so to do that, I used the Versamark refill and a little clear block. And I've just placed a dot on the clear block of refill. And then with a cotton swab, you're just going to apply a little bit of Versamark to the bottom of each of those branches. And before I do that, I actually want to add a little embossing powder to these as well. Okay, so we'll do that. Just with the tip of that swab, you're just going to apply it to the bottom of the branches, and you want to kind of just follow the shape of the die cuts right there. So it's just a really simple technique, but it adds so much to these die cuts and really gives it kind of that fun look to them that goes so nicely with the designer series paper and the silver in that paper as well. And it can be a little bit messy. It's supposed to just look like snow has fallen and has stuck to the bottom of each branch. So that one's done. So let's go ahead and do our polished pink. Now Versamark is a sticky ink, and so as you're cleaning it off your clear block, you may need to use a little bit of soap to remove the film that is left over. So if you wanted to, you don't have to use your clear blocks. You could also use maybe a paper plate or something else that you can just throw away when you're done. I love how this is just different every time you do it, and so the two die cuts are not going to look exactly the same when we're done. So then we'll add our silver embossing powder to the top of that Versamark, and it's going to stick to that. Tap off excess. And then we'll just go ahead and heat this up as well. Okay, so those are all done. You can see all that pretty silver along the bottom of those branches. And one thing you might have noticed is that I like to heat from underneath my cardstock. I think that just gives me a smoother finish when I'm heat embossing. So let's go ahead and begin putting these cards together. I've just got a card base of thick basic white cardstock, and it's been scored in the center at 4 1/4 inches. I'm going to add some of this pretty shiny striped paper to the back. I'm going to add some of the striped pattern paper to the full card front, and we're just going to see a little bit of this peeking out along the edges. It's just a really nice touch and pulls in some of that silver embossing that we've done on our die cuts and our stamped images. Then I've got a piece of soft sea foam, and I've embossed it with the Tasteful Textiles 3D embossing folder, and I'm just going to add this to the center as well. And again, you'll notice that this is not a color that's part of the suite, but it's just a lighter version of that green, and I think it's just really pretty to pull in some extra colors sometimes. So one thing is that when you're creating a grouping of images, we kind of talked about having lots of options, and you want to also have lots of different sizes and shapes. So I'm going to grab some of the larger images, and we're going to put those down first. And you want to stagger them at different heights. So we're going to begin with some of these die cuts in the background, and I'm just going to add them with a little liquid glue in a couple places. So we're going to start with the Misty Moonlight die cut. That's going to go on the right side on the bottom, so it's a little lower. Then we're going to also, let's add the polished pink, and this is going to go on the left side, and it's not the very tallest, but it's close to the top, and it goes all the way to the left. So by doing the two on the left and right side, that's going to give me enough space for the middle ones. So then I know how much room to, kind of how to place them. So then I am going to add a Blushing Bride tree between these two. So I want to make sure that I've got enough space for that as well. So then my Mossy Meadow is going to go not quite center, a little bit off to the right, and it's all the way up to the top. So that one touches the very top of my card. And then the Balmy Blue is kind of between these two. I'm actually going to tuck this one underneath so that I can see that Mossy Meadow in the front just a little bit. Okay, so this is my first layer. So we've got our largest trees, we've got some different heights, we have some different textures. Okay, so then our next layer is going to be the Blushing Bride. This one's going to get popped up with some dimensionals. And this one goes near the bottom as well, between those two there. Okay, so we've kind of evenly spaced some of these larger trees. So next we're going to do the greeting for our card, and I've just stamped that in Memento black ink on one of the seasonal label dies. I'm going to take some adhesive and add it to the back. And then with 12 inches of the Blushing Bride ribbon, I'm just going to go ahead and pull on one string until it starts to loosen up those strands of ribbon. We're going to get about halfway, so that's about 6 inches into this center here. And then I'm going to kind of separate the strands into two pieces or two parts. So just kind of eyeball where the center is. And you're going to take one part and tie a knot so it's in the center of the ribbon. Like so. It doesn't need to be perfectly centered. And then take the other part and tie another knot. And this is going to give us two sections of strands that you can use on the back of your greetings. So this would give you two greetings, because if we use all of it, it's kind of thick and a little bit too much. Okay, so do you see how those are all together? And then we won't lose any strands. And then you can just go ahead and finish pulling that ribbon apart all the way to the end. And then this fun strand that I am actually wrapping around my hand, you could use for another card. It's just got this really fun kind of zigzag look. You could bunch it together and put it behind a greeting as well. It's just got a really fun texture, so don't throw that away. So here we have two strands here, and we've tied a knot so we don't lose any. So put one off to the side, and then the other one you're going to add to the back of your greeting. So find the center, which might not be where the knot is, and then place the center on the back of your greeting, and then wrap it back and forth in a faux bow look. Just like that. So you see how pretty and soft that is. Then for a little bit more texture, we're going to cut 5 more inches of the ribbon, and we're going to actually trim it right down the center. So it's a little thinner. Then we're going to take this and we can just add it to the back in an X shape. And this just gives a little more texture to the background, right where that is. So you can see how pretty that is right there. And then you can just trim these just a little longer than the top ribbon. Then you're going to add some dimensionals to the back here. And before we add this to our card, we're going to add one of the snowflakes, those pretty wonderful snowflakes. So you're just going to go ahead and remove one. And make sure you have the iridescent side up, and that just gets added right behind our greeting on the left side like that. Then you may want to add a little more adhesive just over that center point just to kind of hold everything down. And then this gets added to your card here on the left side. Just like that, maybe a little lower. Okay. All that beautiful texture and color is so pretty with that ribbon. So then the last thing we're going to do for this card are just to add some small die cut trees to kind of behind the greeting. And these are all added with dimensionals. And the mini dimensionals are perfect for this. So you can just place these. They kind of try to get tucked behind that snowflake. So just this one goes a little bit in front of the balmy blue. And then the misty moonlight goes in front of that one. If you need to trim the bottoms so that they can fit better, you can do that. And then the polished pink is off to the side over here, right there. And I'm going to trim that as well, just at the edge of that green cardstock. And so that card is all done. Okay, so to begin card number 2, I've got my card base of thick basic white cardstock, and I'm going to add this beautiful snowflake pattern Blushing Bride Designer Series paper to the front. You can see all that pretty iridescent shimmer to it. Then I've embossed a piece of soft sea foam cardstock with the new wintry 3D embossing folders. And they're the small folders. You do get 2 in the pack. One of them has snowflakes and the other has pine boughs on it. So those are really fun and just create a really beautiful embossed look there. I'm going to put this in the center of a Blushing Bride piece of cardstock, and that's just going to frame it against the Blushing Bride pattern. So it kind of will help just bring that to the front. And so this just goes in the center of that card base, just like that. Then I've added some adhesive to our die cut and stamped pieces, and I'm just going to go ahead and add these to my card. I've got this kind of ribbon look in polished pink, and I'm adding it to a die cut of the Mossy Meadow pattern paper. So this one is one of the patterns from the pack, and you can see that it's got some little dots of polished pink in there and a little bit of texture, so it just creates a really fun tree that's going to kind of be our background piece for our card here. So this is going to go all the way up at the top and off to the right of our card. Next, I'm going to add our stamped kind of Christmas tree here. This is a little bit more in the center. I'm tucking it behind that first one, just so that that first one can have a little bit more prominence on our card. And then I've got this Mossy Meadow tree here that I've stamped. I'm going to add this with some dimensionals, and I'm using the minis. They're just really perfect for the behind these small trees here. This one's just going off to the side a little bit of the larger tree, so just like that. Then we also have the smaller Blushing Bride tree that's going to go down here in the bottom corner. So we have 3 stamped trees and our die cut tree on our card. So the next step is to add our smaller die cut images. And I'm going to begin with this Mossy Meadow, and I'm just going to place it kind of in the middle of my large polished pink. Then I've got Blushing Bride, and that's going to go down just a little lower. And then my polished pink here is going to go between these two like that. Okay, and then if you have any of the ends that are coming down, you can just trim those right along the soft sea foam cardstock. So then before we add our greeting, let's also add a cute snowflake. And I'm just going to go ahead and place that right there in the corner of the tree, and that just kind of pulls everything together, all those fun snowflake patterns. For this greeting, I wanted to share with you a fun way to shorten your tags. So this is the long tag from the seasonal label dies, and I wanted to use this size because it's perfect for my greeting, for the height of my greeting, but not for the length. So I need to shorten it a little bit. So the first thing I do is to place the label where I want it to be on one side. So go ahead and place a piece of washi tape over the die and cardstock so it doesn't move as you cut it from your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So then to cut the other side, you're going to add the label back over and kind of focus on getting the edge of this label to match the same distance as the other side, and then add some adhesive there. Then you want to just double check that it's inside that groove. You don't want to have it be on the outside or you'll not get a nice sized label. Then with your plates, you're going to do a partial die cut. So you're going to place your die so that you are going to only cover the side you need to cut. So that's going to be this side here. So I don't want to cut anything on that side. So I'm going to go ahead and run this through my machine just like this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so that's all done. And when you remove it, you'll have a nice label that's the perfect size for your greeting. So I did do one more thing to both this label and the other label on my card, and it was to add a little embossing detail along the outside edge. So I've just got my stylus here, and it doesn't matter if you use the small or the large size, but you're going to place the paper back inside your label die and then just rub this stylus around the outside edge to kind of pull the this kind of fun detail around the edge. You see how it doesn't have it on this side, but I've added it there. So then to do the other side, you just slide it down and then repeat on that side there. It's just a really nice three-dimensional look to really kind of make your card a little bit more special. So I've got 12 inches of ribbon, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it right down the center. This is going to give me a nice thin ribbon for my card that will look good behind our greeting. So you do want to have a nice pair of scissors when you're doing a technique like this. And so I'm just using a good pair of fabric scissors, and I try to not use these for other parts of my projects. Okay, so then you can save one side of that for another project or card, and then you're going to just take this, add some adhesive on the back on that side. Okay, so then with that 12 inches, you're just going to tie a little bow, and you do want to just be careful as the ribbon can kind of fall apart a little more easily because you have cut it down the center. So you'll get something like that. And then you can just add some adhesive behind your greeting and then place that on the back of your label. So you'll get something like that when you're done. So I've added dimensionals to the back, and I'm just going to go ahead and place this over the snowflake and my trees, and then trim the edges down just a little bit so they look a little bit cleaner. And then that card is all done. So now I want to share with you some quick tag ideas that you can make with maybe any of your leftover pieces that we have stamped and cut in prepping for our card making. And so what I've done is I've cut some of the seasonal label dies, and this final size here is about 3.5 inches. And so these just make a really good tag size. So I've also cut some of the, just some pattern paper from the back of the shiny paper in that Whimsy and Wonder specialty paper. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim these in half so that I get a little bit of that pattern on the bottom of each of these. So I'm going to trim them just shy of 1 3/4. And do the same with this polished pink one here. Okay, so then I'm just going to take one of those and I'm going to add it to the bottom of each color. And I've got Misty Moonlight, Polished Pink, and Mossy Meadow. Okay, then to turn them into tags, we do need to add a hole. And so I've got my hole punch, and I've got a pretty big, heavy-duty hole punch. So I'm just going to do all 3 at one time. And I'm going to punch a larger circle. This has 2 sizes. And I'm just going to do that right in the center of the tops. And it's important to know where that hole is so that you don't cover it up with any of your elements. So I did have some leftover larger pieces. So I'm just going to add 1 large piece to each one of the tags. So a little bit of adhesive. And sometimes you want to make sure that adhesive is going to be covered on your tag here. So I have an extra one of these large trees, but it's a little big for my tag. So I'm just going to take a pair of paper snips and remove this bottom section of branch right here. Just like that. And then I can place that on the right side of my tag. Make sure I don't cover up the hole. Like that. And so then I do have another large tree here, and this one's been stamped with the mint macaron. And I'm going to place that on the left side of my polished pink tag. Then I didn't have any more large trees, but I did want to use a snowflake for one of them. So I'm going to add this to the Misty Moonlight. And again, make sure we've got the right shiny side up. And that will just go on the right side like this. Okay, so I do have 1 large element on each tag, and then I'm just going to use these smaller elements to just kind of fill in a little bit. So then for our greeting, I've just stamped and trimmed down the Let Your Heart Be Light. And I'm just going to add that near the base of each tree. So you'll get something that looks like this. Let's see if we can pull up the third one as well. Super cute. So then we just need to add a little bit of ribbon at the top. I have 6 inches of that Blushing Bride ribbon, and I'm going to go from the front to the back, make a little loop, and tuck those loose ends through the loop. And then you just want to pull really gently on this. Just because it is a thicker ribbon, it can be a little bit harder to manipulate in a small hole like that. Sometimes you just need to pull it gently from the other side. And so we'll go ahead and do that same thing to the other 2 tags. All right, so those are all done. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching me create these fun projects today. If you're interested in getting written instructions or see close-up images of these cards and tags, you can visit my blog, creativechelsea.com. Thank you so much for watching. Have a creative day. Bye.